Hi, very good morning. Today I am going to talk about one another variety of arrhythmias we call bradyarrhythmias. I am Dr. Janak Patel. I am not a cardiologist. I am a student now at present also. I try to learn the things every day. Whatever I have gathered, I would like to share with you. If you understand very well, you will remember, and if you remember, you will try to recognize. And for recognition, you will have to look in many ECGs. So try to recognize those type of arrhythmias. Today we'll be talking about bradyarrhythmias. Yes, if you see more and more number of ECG, you will remember and you will try to identify them, and you listen to more and more person. So you will remember that for lifetime, and you will be able to identify those particular. We have already told you that this all looks alike, but they are different. See here, all these are bradycardia. This all shows bradycardia. This one is sinus bradycardia. This one is idioventricular rhythm. This one is nodal. This one is complete heart block. And this one is also complete heart block. But this is with broad complex. This is with narrow complex. We have discussed before in previous arrhythmias, so I am not discussing at present in detail. But you should be able to differentiate because in each the treatment is different. So you must be able to, yes, by rate wise, they are all bradyarrhythmias. But if you go through the ECG properly, you will be able to identify sinus from idio, junctional, complete heart block, etc. So you must be able to differentiate all those conditions. Bradycardia means we always mean slow heart rate. So if the heart rate is less than 60 per minute, it is called bradycardia. But symptoms will usually appear when the heart rate becomes less than 50 per minute. So from emergency point of view, or we call ACLS point of view, adult cardiac, yes, what else? ACLS, life support. So according to that, rate less than 50 is considered as bradycardia. So resting heart rate less than 60, ideally we call as bradycardia as a general term. But if it is less than 50 per minute, definitely we term that as a bradycardia. Now that bradycardia may be with QRS complex normal like this, or maybe broad. You have to then think it of what it could be. It may be regular, it may be irregular. There are some cardiac arrhythmia which will be absolutely regular, and there will be some cardiac arrhythmia which will be bradycardia but irregular, and maybe regularly irregular or regularly irregular. There is one another term we call as a relative bradycardia, meaning that if the person is having some particular condition like cardiogenic shock, septic shock, high grade fever, etc., where you expect the heartbeat to be more than 100, but instead of that, if the heart rate is say 70 per minute or say even at 60 per minute, we'll call that as relative bradycardia because the expected heart rate is more, but person is having a heart rate which is ideally between 60 to 100 per minute, but it is slow for that particular patient. And classical example is cardiogenic shock, septic shock, high grade fever, where you expect them to be high. This is called relative bradycardia. There is one another term called as inappropriate sinus bradycardia. Now this is a condition when the person does an exercise. Usually heart rate should increase. But in this particular person, the heart rate does not increases. Normally we say that heart rate has to be approximately, this is called maximal age predicted heart rate, MAHR. on exercise. So if you don't attain 80% of that, it is usually described as an inappropriate sinus bradycardia or chronotropic incompetence. So failure of reaching the heart rate to 120 in a 70-year-old person, you can call that as a chronotropic incompetence. So whenever a person is sleeping, the heart rate should be this. Whenever he starts doing exercise, it should go to this level. But instead of that, his heart rate remains at a low level. Then we call that as a chronotropic incompetence. We call this as basic intrinsic capacity of different conductive pathway. SA node has got between 60 to 100, AV node has got 40 to 60, and ventricle has got less than 40. So we say between 40 to 20. So that is a intrinsic capacity of that particular conducting tissue. So here this particular slide I have already discussed before. SA node will beat say between 60 to 100 per minute. Ventricle will beat at the rate of 40 to 20 per minute. And if both are beating independent, either you will see this type or you will see this type. Where here you can see P wave and QRS complex. Atrial rate is always faster because atrial rate is controlled by SA node. But if a impulse does not pass through AV node, like in a complete heart block, now ventricle is beating on its own rate, atrium is beating at its own rate, then you get this type of complexes where ventricular rate is less than atrial rate and P wave is not related to QRS complex. We call this as a complete heart block. This is also one type of an AV dissociation only, but in this the ventricular rate is less than atrial rate. Now if you see here, there is no ventricular contraction. If the impulse from SA node cannot pass through AV node and stimulate the ventricle, and ventricle does not start its intrinsic activity, then you will see only P wave. This, if it is short lasting, and then again you get a normal sinus beat with a normal QRS complex, we call that as a Stokes Adam attack. But if this persists for a very long period, then we call P wave asystole. So that is indirectly same like a ventricular asystole. Ventricle is not contracting, only atrium is contracting. So that is also a part of a ventricular systole, but as you see a P wave, but there is no ventricular contraction. We say that it is a P wave asystole. And here you can see only QRS complex. You can't make out where is the P wave. So this is again a condition where you cannot identify the P wave and you see only R wave. These are only R wave. This will happen in an idioventricular rhythm. This is idioventricular rhythm where ventricular rate is between 40 to 20 per minute and you are not able to identify the P wave at all. This is typical in a case of a ventricular rhythm. We call it an idioventricular rhythm. And the rate is between 40 to 100 per minute. We call as an accelerated idioventricular rhythm. And if the rate becomes more than 100 per minute, then we call that as a tachycardia, ventricular tachycardia. When it is between 40 to 100 per minute, also some person uses the term slow VT, slow ventricular tachycardia. So, what are the common causes and why it happens? There are two basic mechanisms. So, it is classified by two types. If there is something which is happening at impulse formation, because the basic impulse formation is in a SA node. So if something is happening in the SA node, it will produce bradycardia, like sinus arrest, sinus bradycardia, chronotropic incompetence, tachybradyarrhythmia syndrome, or we call it a sick sinus syndrome. These are because of impulse formation. Now impulse is forming, but it is not transmitted to the ventricle, like exit block or at the AV node. This is exit block at SA node, SA sinoatrial exit block, or we call as AV node. At AV node, first degree AV block, second degree AV block. In second degree, we have got type 1, we call Van Quebec, and Mobis type 2, we call fixed block. and third degree AV block, or we call as a complete heart block. Or sometimes you can get a bundle branch block, and in that also it can be associated with bradycardia, which can be left bundle branch block, right bundle branch block, hemi blocks, and sometimes we call as a bifascicular block or trifascicular block, where you got a right bundle branch block with fascicular blocks, maybe LAHB or LPHB, or bifascicular block plus first degree AV block. In these conditions, you can have a bradycardia. So we divide into two big groups: problems with impulse formation and problems with conduction, impulse conduction. So impulse formation disorder, basically it is at the SA node, and impulse conduction is at the 2 at SA node and AV node, and maybe even in bundle also, bundle branch blocks. So there are different terms. We already mentioned absolute and relative bradycardia, narrow complex, wide complex bradycardia, regular, irregular, angina sinus node, sick sinus syndrome, sinus node as a etiology, or AV nodal bradycardia or ventricular. This is depending upon the origin of the impulse. If it is because of sinus node, it is sinus, and also there is one variety which is there in a sinus, we call it a tachybradyarrhythmia syndrome. And if there is a rhythm which is from the node, or we call it AV node or junctional, then usually junctional rate is between 40 to 60 per minute, but we don't use the word bradycardia. If it is less than 40, then we call it a junctional rhythm with slow ventricular rate, and if it is more than 40, we call it a fast ventricular rate. So these are the different terms which are being utilized. You can also classify it as a sinus bradycardia, sinus node dysfunction, which can be a sinoatrial exit block, sinus arrest, sick sinus syndrome, and if it is at the AV node, first degree, second degree, and in that Mobis type 1, Mobis type 2, third degree AV block or complete heart block. And sometimes we also use a word if there is an ectopic rhythm which is starting from the junction or from the AV node, we call junctional escape rhythm. And if it is starting from the ventricle, we call it a ventricular escape rhythm, or we call idioventricular rhythm. So these are the different terms. This is same thing we have mentioned, we have shown you before. It is divided into sinus node, AV node, and bundle branch. So these are all the different terms which are utilized. You can classify by utilizing basically bradycardia, narrow complex with regular, narrow complex with irregular, wide complex regular, and wide complex irregular. So it is a combination of bradycardia where you combine two properties: narrow complex regular, which will be sinus bradycardia, complete heart block with junctional escape, or atrial flutter with a high degree block. And if it is irregular, sinus arrhythmia, Mobis type 2 and 1 can become irregular, and atrial flutter with variable block. While if it is with a wide QRS complex and regular, it is usually sinoventricular rhythm, complete heart block with ventricular escape, or atrial flutter with a high degree AV block. And if it is irregular with a wide complex, sinoatrial exit block with bundle branch block, Mobis type 1, Mobis type 2 with aberrant conductions. And also if person is having wide complex QRS complex with irregularity, bradycardia with bundle branch block can be with irregular and can be wide complex. Etiology wise, we mainly divide into big groups. We call congenital variety. Most common which you come across is acute myocardial infarction, ischemic heart disease, unstable angina, or we call acute coronary syndrome. Structural heart disease like cardiomyopathy, then hypothyroidism, physiological in case of an athlete. If you can't identify the cause, we call idiopathic. Drugs which can produce bradycardia, because these are all antiarrhythmic drugs which reduces the conduction at the level of AV node. We call amiodarone, beta blocker, calcium channel blocker in which verapamil and diltiazem, and even digitalis also will reduce the heart rate. Now, mechanism wise, there are some other condition which can also produce a bradycardia. So any condition which increases the parasympathetic tone, like vagal stimulation, Valsalva maneuver, sensitive carotid sinus massage, or sensitive carotid sinus, increase intracranial pressure, hypothermia, hyperkalemia, hypoglycemia, etc. can be also associated with decreased heart rate. Pathologically, you can call because of drugs, which we have already mentioned, ischemic heart disease like myocardial infarction, or because of infection or inflammation of myocardium, myocarditis, infective endocarditis, Lyme's disease, metabolic disorders like hypothyroidism, hypothermia, electrolyte imbalance like hyperkalemia, hypokalemia, autoimmune disease like SLE. If you are doing some surgery and there is a damage to AV node, so surgical, post-surgical, and in a degenerative variety, we call classical example sick sinus syndrome. So these are pathological classification and we call pathological etiology. You can divide a sinus node dysfunction into intrinsic group and extrinsic group. I'm not going into detail. If you want to go, you can have a pause at this slide and go through at your leisure time. We have already shown you this slide before. So person will develop bradycardia because of one, altered impulse formation and altered conduction. Altered conduction, there is a conduction block at the level of SA node or at the level of AV node. So that will produce, and if there is an altered impulse formation at the level of the SA node and automaticity is reduced, it will produce bradycardia. So these are the two mechanisms which we already shown you before also, and we have given you the different conditions which will produce bradycardia. So if the person is having a heart rate less than 60, good number of time is asymptomatic. But when it falls below 50, almost symptoms are present. The commonest symptoms are palpitation. Person will be aware of it and he'll say that my heart is beating slow. Person sometimes, when he develops a severe bradycardia, he will complain of dyspnea, we call shortness of breath. He might precipitate congestive heart failure. He might have vaginal pain. Sometimes that can also precipitate acute MI. Person can have a fall of blood pressure and even sometimes peripheral shock. He can have syncope, pre-syncope, seizures. He may become unconscious, altered mental status, and if pulse rate is very slow, even he can have a pulseless bradycardia and it can terminate into sudden cardiac death. So this is the different types of presentation what you can come across in a bradycardia. So angina, trouble of concentrating, confusion, difficulties while doing exercise, dizziness, tiredness, light headache, palpitation, shortness of breath, syncope, diaphoresis, sweating, etc. These are some of the symptoms. Some people put it at ABCD, chest discomfort, shortness of breath, altered level of consciousness, weakness, fatigue, light headache, dizziness, pre-syncope, syncope, and on examination you get hypotension. Good number of time you can get orthostatic hypotension because person heart rate does not increase with a standing posture. Person can develop a congestive heart failure and can have symptom signs suggestive of pulmonary congestion on auscultation as well as on X-ray. And person can also have a frank signs of congestive heart failure and features of pulmonary edema. So once you detect a person is having a bradycardia, best way is medical history. A good history, good physical examination gives you a lot of idea regarding the probable etiology of a bradycardia. It can be confirmed by taking an ECG and having a good look at the ECG. And if you go through all the regular pattern, what we call as the algorithm, you will be able to identify what is the probable etiology of bradycardia by EKG. In that you will have to look at the rate, QRS complex, broad or narrow, regular, RR interval, regular, irregular, relation of the P wave to QRS complex, whether the P wave is present or not, and then have a look at the ST segment, T wave, Q wave, etc. All those you should look for. In case of a doubt, you can go for a EP study, Holter monitoring, external loop recording, internal loop recording, MCOT, etc. These are usually needed if the person is having paroxysmal or intermittent episodes of bradycardia. Classical, this will be helpful in a case of a sick sinus syndrome, or we call sinus node dysfunction. In that cases, Holter monitoring, EP study, ILR, ELR, MCOT may be helpful. This I have already shown you that first one is sinus bradycardia, second one is idioventricular rhythm, this is nodal or we call junctional rhythm, this is a broad QRS complete heart block, this is a narrow QRS complete heart block. This we already mentioned that you always look at the ECG reading, you look at the P wave, QRS complex is present or not, QR is narrow or broad, what is the rate, less than 40, more in favor of idioventricular rhythm, complete heart block or because of drugs. Look at the axis, look at the PR interval, gradually prolong or not, P wave relation to QRS complex, look at the atrial rate and ventricular rate, look at the ST segment, T wave, U wave, etc. Look at the tall T wave, U wave presence, QT prolongation, digoxin effect, all this you look for. So regularity, rate, QRS complex narrow, broad, P wave present, relation to QRS complex, PR interval normal, abnormal, QT interval normal, abnormal, T wave normal or abnormal, ST segment, look at sinus bradycardia or not. We already done this before, that 6 standard question, all those you ask for, you look for in ECG, try to identify the etiology. If you can't identify, now you go for the other, that is how the bradycardia is initiated, whether it is started with atrial beats or with ventricular beat. Look at the effect of atropine or look at the effect of albuterol and try to identify whether it is sinus or whether it is atrial. Because if it is because of the AV node, atropine will not change the heart rate. Whether it terminates with P or it terminates with QRS complex. If it terminates with P, it is more of a sinus. And if it terminates with QRS complex, it is more in favor of what we call as ventricular. So whenever you want to go, have a look at this minimum. Look at the rate. Look at the rhythm, regular or irregular. Look at the P wave is present and what is the PR interval. It is constant or not, or it is changing. P wave is not absent, then you can't calculate the PR interval. QRS complex is broad or narrow, because if QRS complex is broad, it is more in favor of a ventricular complexes like idioventricular rhythm, or maybe because of complete heart block with a broad QRS complex, or even a pacemaker rhythm. Hemodynamically stable, unstable, answer that questions. It is starting with PAC or PVC and it is terminating with P or QRS complex. When you answer all these questions, nearly 100% of the time you will be able to identify the etiology. This is a sinus bradycardia. You can see a P wave followed by a QRS complex. PR interval is constant. P wave is present before QRS complex. QRS complex is narrow and rate wise less than 60 per minute. It is sinus bradycardia. There is a condition we call as a sinus node dysfunction which may produce sinus arrhythmia, sinus pauses, sinus arrest, sinoatrial exit block, inappropriate sinus bradycardia or chronotropic incompetence. So any one of this what is present, we call that as a sinus node dysfunction. So this is sinus node dysfunction is a broad terminology under which any one of these problem can occur. And it is a classical example in a sick sinus syndrome. So in a sick sinus syndrome, you can have any one of this plus atrial arrhythmias. So you can have any one of this. I'm not going through this in detail. So etiology of sinus dysfunction can be age-related, atrial remodeling, atherosclerosis, infiltrative disease, post-cardiac surgery because of medicines like A, B, C, D we call beta blocker, calcium channel blocker, amiodarone and digoxin. A for amiodarone, B for beta blocker, C for CCB and D for digoxin. Hypothyroidism, hypothermia, etc. All these are the different causes of sinus node dysfunction. This is sinus arrhythmia, which is mainly physiological. You can come across in respiratory. We have also discussed this while doing an arrhythmias chapter. Or it can be non-respiratory, which is uncommon. Very common you will come across in respiratory disorders, particularly in a COPD. You can have a sinus arrhythmia. During inspiration, the sinus rate will change, and during expiration, sinus rate will change. You can see during inspiration, there is a little increase in the heart rate, and during expiration, there is decrease in the heart rate. This is physiological, and good number of time this is non-pathological. So try to remember that during expiration the rate is decreasing, inspiration the rate is increasing, and if this is regular, then it is we call it a sinus arrhythmia or sinus dysrhythmia. Does not require any treatment. Sinus, respiratory sinus arrhythmia. This is again shown during expiration, during inspiration what is happening, and this is non-respiratory sinus arrhythmia where it is not related to respiration. So rate is changing on its own, but it has got no relation with respiration. Then we call non-respiratory sinus arrhythmias. There is something called as sinoatrial exit block. We don't go into detail. I'll just pass through. In that again, there is a first degree, second degree, third degree AV block, type 1 Van Quebec, type 2 fixed blocks, etc. We are not interested in that. Whenever you see a normal sinus beats, and then there is a followed by a pause, and this pause is exactly the multiple of RR, then we call a sinoatrial block or sinoatrial exit block. But if it is not a multiple of RR interval, say this RR interval is 20 small square, so this will be multiple of 20 small square. So if it is not a multiple of 20 small square, then we call that a sinus arrest. And to differentiate between sinoatrial block and sinus arrest is difficult. But you can identify between the two if you try to calculate this. If it is more than the multiple of RR, then it is not sinoatrial block, it is more in favor of a sinus arrest. These are the diagram which is showing you type 1, type 2 variety, etc. I am not going into that detail. You can see here, this is 2 RR interval. This is 1 RR. This is RR interval. So this is exactly 2 RR interval. So this is more in favor of a sinoatrial exit block. So these are all the different first degree, second degree, type 1, type 2, and this is third degree SA block. We are not interested. This you can identify by doing a EP study. So when you don't do that, sinus pause or we call it a sinus arrest. So this particular will be for 2 seconds, 3 seconds. But this interval will not be the multiple of RR. It may be less or it may be more in a multiple of RR. So you have to differentiate that. And usually it is between 2 to 3 seconds. But when it is markedly prolonged, it will produce syncopal attacks, and sometimes even person can have a sudden cardiac death. If ventricle does not pick up, then person can have a ventricular arrest simultaneously. So this is, you can see that there is a big pause. There is no P wave, no QRS complex, and this particular interval is not the multiple of RR. We'll call that as sinus arrest or a sinus pause. One way of identifying. Again, you can see this. This is not exactly the multiple of RR. You can see here, this is more than 3, but not exactly 3. This is 5, less than 5. So it is sinus pause or sinus arrest. Same thing. Now here, this is continuous. You don't have a QRS complex here. And there is a sinus arrest, and the junction, that is AV node, is taken up. So this is called sinus arrest with junctional escape rhythm, and that will be between 40 to 60 per minute. This is example of a sick sinus syndrome. This will be tachycardia and suddenly there will be a bradycardia. That's why it is also called tachybrady-arrhythmia syndrome. And in that you will get a atrial arrhythmia in the form of atrial flutter fibrillation with sinus node dysfunction. So you will have a symptom signs suggestive of a sinus node dysfunction, and in between you will have a atrial arrhythmia which will be producing more of tachycardia, and this will be producing more of bradycardia. Tachybrady-arrhythmia syndrome. And one of the way to identify is sinus node recovery time. It is called SNRT. So if you do a SNRT, SNRT is markedly prolonged. While doing an EP study, it will suggest that there is a sinus node disorder, and it is suggestive of a sinus node dysfunction, and that gives rise to what we call as a tachybrady-arrhythmia syndrome. So there is a sinus node dysfunction, there is a atrial arrhythmias, and together it produces a symptom. Because of atrial arrhythmia, palpitation and chest pain, and because of sinus node dysfunction, that is bradycardia, this is producing tachycardia. Bradycardia produces syncope and light headache. So typical of sick sinus syndrome, you can see a run of tachycardias, and then there is a bradycardia suddenly. So bradytachy or tachybrady-arrhythmia syndrome. Here there is a tachycardia, here there is a bradycardia. So these are the two. This is because of sinus node dysfunction, this is because of atria. So tachybrady, all different, you can go through at leisure time. And EPS study will show you that sinus node recovery time is longer. And if it becomes longer and longer, then it is in favor of sick sinus syndrome. There is one another condition which can also have a bradycardia, we call wandering pacemaker, where there is a pacemaker from the atrium, but it is beating at the slower rate, and it produces abnormal P wave. You can see that this P wave, this P wave, this P wave are all different. So again you can see here P wave are different. So this is a wandering pacemaker, and the rate wise it is less than 60 per minute. So we call wandering pacemaker with bradycardia. Here there is no ventricular contraction, so almost there is no contraction of the ventricle, so no pulse. But if you see this, and again this is followed by a normal sinus beat, this is called Stokes-Adam attack, where P wave is present but there is no QRS complex. But if this continues for a very long period, and then there is no QRS complex at all, and you see only P wave, then we also use the word P wave arrest. So there are only P wave, but there are no QRS complex. You can call P wave arrest. So bradycardia, we already explained you, can be because of atrial escape rhythm, junctional escape rhythm, or ventricular escape rhythm. In atrial escape rhythm, you will have an abnormal P wave followed by a normal QRS complex. PR interval may be constant, and rate wise it will be between 60 to 80 per minute. While in a junctional there is no P wave, and if at all P wave is seen, it is just before QRS complex or just after QRS complex, and QRS complex is normal, and the rate wise it is between 40 to 60 per minute. While in a ventricular escape rhythm, P wave is usually absent, and very occasionally you can have a P wave present, but always it is a retrograde transmission. So usually it is after QRS complex only. QRS complex, if it is arising from close to bundle of His, it will be narrow. If it is from the ventricular, then it is always broad. The T wave will be always in the opposite direction. Usually it is produced by what we call as Purkinje system. So rate is 20 to 40 per minute. These are the characteristics of the atrial escape rhythm, or we call junctional escape rhythm or a nodal escape rhythm, ventricular escape rhythm. These are the characteristics. So these are different type of escape. We call junctional escape rhythm, ventricular escape rhythm, or atrial escape rhythm. So atrial escape, this is a typical of atrial escape rhythm. The rate wise it will be between 60 to 80 per minute. Junctional escape rhythm is between 40 to 60 per minute. Here you can see that here in an atrium there is a P wave QRS complex clearly seen. And now you can see here the sinus bit, followed by, now this looks identical like this, but there is no P wave at all. And the rate wise it is between 40 to 60 per minute. So this is junctional escape, this is atrial escape. Now this particular P wave is different from this. That's why this is from an atrial focus. So that is an escape from sinus node. This is by a sinus node. This is the atrial focus has taken over. So this is an atrial escape rhythm. So this is atrial escape rhythm. This is again, you can see here that P wave is independent, QRS complex is independent. This is RR interval. Now this is a what we call as a fusion bit or escape bit. If the shape is like a normal sinus bit, then it is a capture bit. Now this particular P wave, you can see that P wave is here, P wave is here. This is a P wave, and this is followed by a narrow QRS complex. So this particular is likely to be a capture bit. So this is classical escape rhythm, regular escape rhythm, and this escape rhythm can be junctional or can be ventricular because this is a narrow QRS complex. Now by and large, if we consider this particular, if the P wave is not at all related, this is usually in a case of a complete heart block. Now in a case of a complete heart block, if the person has got one of the complex which is coming from the sinus node, passes through the AV node and ventricle captures that, then this is a capture bit. And this will be more in favor of what we call as complete heart block with a narrow QRS complex, where the focus in the ventricle is close to bundle of his. This is typical junctional rhythm. You can see here the P wave is after QRS complex. Here there is no P wave, and in this the P wave is just before QRS complex. But in all the three, the rate is between 60 to 40 per minute. It is between 60 and 40. All QRS complex are narrow. Usually P wave is absent, and if at all P wave is present, it is after QRS or just before QRS complex. And RR interval will be regular, and it will be between 60 to 40 per minute. Again this slide, junctional rhythm. This is ventricular escape rhythm, normal sinus. Now sinus node does not fire and ventricle starts firing. Ventricle is not at all affected by a sinus node firing. So now you get a ventricular escape, and that rate will be between 40 to 20 per minute. And here you will have a broad QRS complex if ventricular focus is from the ventricle and sinus node fails to depolarize, and this is typical. And if there is a ventricular escape because of a complete AV block, then this will be the type, which is almost we call as a complete heart block. You can see that P wave is independent. The atrial rate is faster than the ventricular rate, and QRS complex are broad. This is classical complete heart block. This is idioventricular rhythm, no P wave. Rate is between 20 to 40 per minute, broad QRS complex, classical idioventricular rhythm. Again idioventricular rhythm, you can identify very clearly. Now if you calculate the rate here, the rate is more than 40. So if the rate is more than 40 and less than 100, we call accelerated idioventricular rhythm. The only difference is between rate. So if rate is less than 40 and more than 20, normal idioventricular rhythm, but the rate between 40 to 100, it is accelerated idioventricular rhythm, and the second word utilized is slow VT. Accelerated idioventricular rhythm, again same, you can have a look at leisure time. Now regarding an AV block, this already we have discussed in a chapter of what we call as a conduction system and AV blocks. So I'm not repeating again in detail, but I'm going through very fast. First degree AV block will be always regular. P wave and R wave will be equal, but PR interval will be more than 0.2. In Mobis type 1, the PR interval will be gradually increasing, and one P wave will be missed. That's why it is irregular. So that is called Van Keber. In a Mobis type 2, P wave are more than R wave. It is constant. It is regular. One P wave is transmitted, one P wave is not transmitted. So we call 2:1 block. Or for 3 P wave, only one is transmitted, we call 3:1 block, etc. So that is called Mobius type 2 with a fixed block. Or it may be with a variable block. And when it is with a variable block, it will become irregular. In a complete heart block, P wave are more than R wave. It is grossly irregular. As far as the P wave is concerned, PR interval you cannot calculate because it is grossly irregular. P wave is independent, QRS complex is independent. And the rate wise, it is idioventricular rhythm. So it is between 20 to 40 per minute. So this is classical of complete heart block. So in all this condition, you will have a bradycardia. So first degree AV block, I've already explained, so I'm running fast. PR interval is more than 0.2 second. QRS, all QRS complex are narrow. PR interval is constant. P wave and QRS complex are identical. So number of P wave and number of QRS complex are identical. While in a case of what we call as second degree AV block, we'll be showing you in a second slide. These are all with PR interval longer than 0.2 second. In a second degree AV block, Mobius type 1, what we call Wenckebach, you can see here the PR interval 0.18 becoming 0.24 and then one P wave is missed. Again 0.18, again same thing will be repeated. This is classical Mobius type 1 or we call as Wenckebach. In a Mobius type 2, the PR interval is normal. But suddenly there will be one P wave will not be transmitted and second is again transmitted with normal PR interval. This is called Mobius type 2 with a fixed block. 2:1 block. This is for 2 P wave, 1 is transmitted, so we call 2:1 block. Here, this is Mobius type 1. Gradually PR interval is increasing and then this P wave is missed. Again you can see here, this is type 2. 2 P wave, 1 is transmitted. 2 P wave, 1 is transmitted. So this is 2:1 block. We call fixed block or classical Mobius type 2. Again you can see this is 2:1, this is 3:1, 2:1, so this is variable block. And whenever there is a variable block, we call advanced second degree AV block. This is complete heart block, narrow QRS complex, broad QRS complex. I have already explained before. So I am going little faster. This is first degree AV block, this is Wenckebach, this is Mobius type 2, and this is high grade third degree AV block. High grade third degree AV block preceded by ventricular escape. This is third degree AV block and then there is a ventricular escape. Now whenever there is a pacemaker, you will see that pacemaker spike is there. Now depending upon at what rate the pacemaker is being adjusted, you will have that. So on a demand pacemaker, it will depend upon what is the demand you have paced. But QRS complex will be broad and each QRS complex will be preceded by a spike. This is ventricular pacing, what has been done. And if this pacemaker fails, you will have a straight line. You can have another variety where we call atrial fibrillation with a very slow ventricular rate. In that, atrial rate may be very fast, between 350 to 700, and ventricular rate may be slow. This will happen because the AV node is being impaired. There is an impaired conduction in an AV node. Such combination can happen, and in that, the ventricular contraction will be irregularly irregular. This combination can happen. You can see here, this is an atrial fibrillation with a very slow ventricular rate. You can see here RR interval. It is irregularly irregular. But if you calculate, say this is 10-second paper. This is say approximately 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 6 multiplied by 8, 48. So this is 48 beats per minute. So this is less than 60 per minute. We will call this as a slow ventricular rate. Atrial fibrillation with slow ventricular rate. Usually we don't use the term ventricular atrial fibrillation with sinus bradycardia. We don't use that term. We call slow ventricular rate because by and large the atrial fibrillation is associated with a fast ventricular rate. Now how you approach to a bradyarrhythmias? First step, look at the pulse, look at the blood pressure, look at the vital data, examine the cardiovascular system properly and try to identify what is the probable etiology. So we call look at the pulse, whether regular, irregular, what is the volume, what is the blood pressure, what is the vital data, stable, unstable, in a hypotension, shock stage, etc. All those you can identify by doing this particular. This will help you a lot. Second step, by looking at this, stable or unstable. Whenever it is unstable, it is risky. So person will have hypotension or will have a symptom signs of a shock stage. That will be more lethal. If pulse is present, little better prognosis. If pulse is not there, it can be ventricular fibrillation, ventricular tachycardia. Yes, what it will is PEA, pulseless electrical activity, and arrest, or we call standstill, or even sometimes we use the word ventricular arrest, ventricular standstill, or ventricular asystole. So in all those there will be a pulseless. But this is ideally, as there is no pulse, you cannot use the word bradyarrhythmia. But we call pulseless. Person is absolutely pulseless. BP is not recordable. Pulse is not palpable. So this is a emergency. You will need shockable, non-shockable. We'll be talking about that in detail when we talk further. Now what is most important is, if it is this, start treatment first. In this, you will require a shock, CPR, and then you put them on a monitor. Try to identify what is the ECG pattern. In this, you will do a CPR, try to revive the person, and in between, you put them on a monitor, IV line, oxygen, monitor, etc. And why monitor? You try to identify the impulse formation is there or not, conduction is there or not, what type of arrhythmia it is, try to identify from the rhythm strip. Step 2, if it is stable, now try to identify what is the rhythm. If it is a complete heart block, Mobis type 2, severe bradycardia, and it is persistent, you will require pacing, because by and large, AV node, complete heart block, will not respond to your drugs. Person will require pacing. Maybe temporary pacing if the etiology is reversible, and if etiology is not reversible, permanent pacing. Depending upon the types, you will be deciding what to do. In an unstable variety, first ABC, now this is being changed. C has come here, we call CARE. So we call circulation, airway, breathing. Initially, we always try atropine. If it does not produce results, even after giving up to what we call as a 6 milligram, then pacing is a must. Depending upon the etiology, you will decide permanent pacing or a temporary pacing. Investigation wise, always try to identify few conditions which are reversible, like we call, some say 5H, some say 6H, some say 8H, and 5T. And also you can go for a laboratory parameters, echo and radiological studies, and treat the basic etiology. If you identify this, treat the basic etiology, because majority of them are reversible. So try to identify these reversible causes and treat them. So this is the way we usually. So bradyarrhythmia, always look for blood pressure, chest pain, level of consciousness, clinical parameter or what we call vital data, etc. Try to identify whether it is with regular rhythm, irregular rhythm. Give atropine and see the effect. If it does not produce effect, external pacing or internal pacing, whatever is available and whatever is indicated. So this is same thing what we say, identify whether it is stable, unstable, establish the IV line, give oxygen, look for the vital signs, get and 12 lead ECG, look at the rhythm and decide the treatment. This is the way you try to identify what rhythm it is. So in a bradyarrhythmia, calculate the rate, it is less than 60 per minute, whether it is regular or irregular. If it is irregular, look for second degree AV block, look for sick sinus syndrome, tachybrady syndrome, or atrial fibrillation with bradyarrhythmias. And in a regular rhythm, normal sinus, third degree AV block, first degree AV block, and escape rhythm. These are the way you try to identify by an EKG. Management wise, look whether the person is stable, unstable. If person is unstable, you require immediate action. Look at the mental status. Look at the hypotension signs. Person will have a syncope, light headache, altered mental status, or sometime even the person may be in a shock stage. Try to identify whether it is a Mobis type 2 or complete heart block. If it is Mobis type 2 or a complete heart block, pacing is a must. Atropine you may try, may give an effect, may not give an effect. So by and large, transcutaneous pacing should be done immediately. And you may try IV atropine 6 times, but don't wait further. And if there is a bradycardia, other variety of bradycardia, prepare for transcutaneous pacing, give atropine. You can give up to 6 milligram, but if it does not produce results, go for pacing. If it is stable, check the ECG. If it is sinus bradycardia, no treatment required. First degree AV block, good number of time, does not require any treatment. Second degree AV block, particularly in a Van Quebec, may not require any treatment. But in a case of a Mobis type 2, usually you will have to decide regarding a pacemaker implant and maybe permanent pacemaker implant. In a complete heart block, depending upon the symptoms, you will require a permanent pacemaker. Also, at the same time, try to identify the reversible causes. Here you can see lot number of causes, they are splitted up. Hypoxia, hypovolemia, acidosis, hypokalemia, hyperkalemia, hypoglycemia, hypothermia, raised intracranial pressure. Now in hypoxia, oxygen, hypovolemia, IV fluids, hydrogen, treat acidosis by soda bicarb. Hypokalemia, usually you will require what we call as IV glucose with insulin. In hyperkalemia, calcium gluconate may be needed, but with danger. Hypoglycemia, give IV dextrose. Hypothermia, increase the body temperature by what we call as a hot blankets, etc. and treat the raised intracranial pressure. These are reversible causes. Same way, in a tamponade needle, pneumothorax needle or intercostal drainage, thrombus in pulmonary artery and in coronary artery, thrombolysis. Maybe you may require, in a case of a coronary artery, you may require even a cath labs, a coronary angiography followed by what we call as a intervention, and that is we call stent or we call PCI. And in case of a toxins, particularly tricyclic antidepressant poisoning, you will require soda bicarb. These are some of the conditions you should try to look for while treating the patient. And if you identify this, these are reversible causes and person may not require a permanent pacemaker. So always look for that. So these are what we already discussed before, that third degree AV block and second degree AV block may require a pacing, and usually we go for transcutaneous pacing or we call internal pacing. Stable bradycardia, unstable bradycardia, we already done. This is a chart which is a standard charts which whatever we have talked before, it is repeated here. Identify first, it is a bradycardia. Maintain airway, we call CAP, circulation, airway and breathing. Oxygen, cardiac monitoring, IVSS line, 12 lead ECG. If there is a persistent bradycardia, answer is yes, go for atropine, dopamine or epinephrine can be utilized. And if answer is no, monitor and observe. Means if person is not, or if a person is stable, you can monitor and observe. If person is unstable, you can start with atropine, dopamine or epinephrine, and if does not work, transcutaneous pacing or transvenous pacing, whatever facilities is available, that you should go for. So this is atropine. You can repeat every 3 to 5 minutes. Maximum dose is 3 milligram. By and large, we don't wait longer. And you can give a dopamine 2 to 20 microgram per kilogram per minute and see the response. Or you can use a epinephrine 2 to 10 microgram per minute infusion and try to see the response. If it does not produce a response, yes, you have to go for transvenous pacing or you have to go for transcutaneous pacing. This is called ACLS algorithm, which is utilized mainly in a pediatric groups. So you can go at your leisure time. Alternative agents is adrenaline, dopamine, isoprenaline. The most common utilized is adrenaline. You can use that particular. So this is again what has been given before. This is highlighted in a little bold handwritings. So you can go through that at leisure time. If there is unstable, this will be the signs. If answer is no, monitor and observe. If answer is yes, atropine. How you give atropine? If atropine does not produce effect, transcutaneous pacing, or you can go for dopamine infusion or epinephrine. Usually transcutaneous is most preferred, and you can go for an expert consultation. So this should be done. And what are the doses of atropine? What are the doses which we have already mentioned before? Same thing shown in a separate patterns. Same thing is highlighted in a little bold handwriting. Always, I am repeating again, try to identify the reversible causes and treat accordingly. I have already mentioned before. There are different types of pacemaker. There can be an external pacemaker, which is a non-invasive. Internal pacemaker are usually invasive. It can be temporary, it can be permanent. And depending upon your requirement, it can be demand pacemaker or it can be overdrive pacemaker. Overdrive pacemaker, override or overdrive we call. Those are usually required in a tachyarrhythmias, while demand pacemakers are usually required in a bradyarrhythmias. You can have only atrial pacing, you can do a AV pacing, or you can do only ventricular pacing, depending upon what it is required. And usually, pacing is for a rate, and also pacing you can utilize for what we call is a synchronization. So, whenever there is a person who has got a failure, CRT will be very, very useful. So CRT will be helpful in a case of a congestive heart failure with arrhythmias. So in that case, CRT we call cardiac resynchronization therapy. So in that particular you can use that. So pacemaker can be temporary, can be transcutaneous or transjugular, and permanent pacemakers are usually placed below the skin on the right side or a left side in a female below the breast tissue. So these are temporary pacemaker. These are permanent pacemaker. So you can see it is placed below the skin and the wire goes through the venous system into the atrium and into the ventricle. This is dual pacing. It is pacing atrium as well as ventricle. So pacing can be internal or external, which can be temporary or permanent. Are usually they are put on the external side of the chest, but the wire goes through the venous system and it will be pacing. You can see that it is permanent pacemaker, which is shown like this. You can see this is a pacemaker and wire is passed through the venous system and it will be atrial or can be only ventricle or can be atrial and ventricle together. So we call sequential pacing. This is pediatric algorithms. Now we are going through individual. If person is asymptomatic, usually treatment may not be required. Have a good monitoring, examine cardiovascular system properly, and person may not require any particular treatment. Sometimes a person may require a non-surgical management like pacing or temporary pacer and try to treat the basic cause. Usually the drug which are commonly utilized is atropine, dopamine, adrenaline or noradrenaline, and sometimes they utilize glucagon. Usually glucagon is not commonly utilized. The most common utilized is atropine followed by dopamine followed by noradrenaline. So these are the common. In a sick sinus syndrome, usually try to treat the etiology if it is treatable. And depending upon the condition, either you use the drug for anti-bradycardia, but when you use the drug for anti-bradycardia, it will produce tachycardias. And by and large, the cardiac pacing, which we call rate-related pacing, is more helpful. So rate-related pacing or demand pacemaker we call, that is very helpful. In a person, try to review thyroid function because it is reversible. Pacemaker is most commonly required if the person is symptomatic. And if the person is developing a syncopal attack, he requires pacemaker 100%. And because syncopal attack, he can never fall and injury. In a AV block, first degree AV block, second degree AV block, particularly what we call as a Van Quebec type 1, Mobis type 1, may not require any treatment, may not need any treatment. But in second degree AV block, particularly a fixed block or variable block or a high degree AV block and complete heart block, you will require anti-bradycardic treatment like atropine, isoprenaline, or even noradrenaline or a dopamine. And final, they require a pacemaker implant, implantable pacemaker. So that is absolutely necessary in those particular, and particularly in a second degree AV block, Mobis type 2, they very frequently require that particular pacemaker. So in a AV block, this is the pattern what we usually do. In a third degree AV block, pacemaker is almost compulsory unless the etiology is reversible, where you may require a temporary pacemaker for a short period. In a idioventricular rhythm, again, temporarily you can try atropine, you can try isoprenaline, adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, etc. But they require a temporary pacemaker if the cause is reversible. If cause is not reversible, then they require a permanent pacemaker. And if the person is on a drug which are the etiology, you remove those, it may be temporary. So good number of time by stopping this medicine, the condition reverses back to normal. So try to identify all these conditions. Here I am ending my lecture. I hope this will be very helpful to you in your everyday practice. We'll be seeing you again next time in another variety of a cardiac arrhythmia, that is we call as cardiac arrest, which is very, very helpful.